A shocking new poll has suggested that a Nigel Farage political comeback would add a whopping 8 points to Reform UK's party vote. So if the GBNews presenter and Reform's honorary president were to return to lead that party, both Labour and the Tories polling would fall by 4 points. It comes after a poll last week put Reform just 4 points behind the Conservatives, who continue to slump to new lows. Well, the pollster and academic Matthew Goodwin, he's been digging into the numbers. He's responsible for all of this data. So he joins me now. Matt, look, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Look, talk us through it, please. What does all of this really mean? What are the different permutations of it all?
Well, good to be with you, Patrick. I mean, what it's showing us is Nigel Farage is still a political weapon. I mean, he's going to add about 8 points to the Reform Party's vote if he were to stand at the next general election. We know as well that already, if Reform keep polling what they're polling nationally, they're probably going to cost the Conservatives about 42 seats at the next election. So if Farage gets involved on top of that, obviously we can expect the seat losses to increase, and it's going to be another nail in the coffin for Rishi Sunak.
OK, so if Nigel Farage was to come back and lead Reform, do we have any idea what that might look like in terms of seats for the Reform Party? Because that's still with the discrepancy, isn't it? Oh, they could get a load of votes, but not a lot of seats. Yeah,
this is a big problem. Many of your viewers will remember 2015, Patrick, UKIP get 12.6%. They got one seat. Obviously, they lost another seat in Rochester and Stroud. They took Clacton. Look, I think Reform basically need to be getting up into the 20% plus range to be winning a handful of seats at the election. They're currently averaging around 14%. We saw them got 17% at that Blackpool South by-election, but they need to be getting a bit higher if they want seats. They need to be getting into the 20s. And don't forget, Patrick, they need to be targeting seats where there are lots of Reform voters, many working-class voters, many older voters, many voters that are really irritated with immigration and the lack of controls on that issue. Down the east coast of England, for example, around parts of Essex and Kent, areas where UKIP was strong and Nigel Farage was strong in the past. So, look, I think like all small parties, what you need is a very focused strategy. You need to target 10, 15 seats maximum, and you need to throw everything at those seats. Now, will Farage go for it? I don't know. The people I'm talking to, they say he's thinking about campaigning in America. He's thinking about his TV career. He's probably also thinking about, how well is Reform going to do? I mean, don't forget, Farage has always been really the master of timing when it comes to politics. He wants to go when he thinks things are going to have a major impact. And he may be looking at Reform, Patrick, and saying, well, why aren't they winning by-elections? I mean, this is a big question, right? Why aren't Reform winning by-elections given the scale of public disillusionment out there in the country with both illegal and legal immigration? And I'm sure that will be weighing on his mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, is there a particular set of circumstances that no one's really talking about here, Matt, which is, OK, let's say that the Reform vote does come through and we end up with a hung parliament. I'm looking here that apparently it would take a few percent off the off Labour's points as well. And then actually Reform could hold the balance of power. We could end up with a coalition between Reform and the Conservatives. Is there a possibility there or not?
I think that's pretty unlikely. I think what's more likely is that we have a very tight race. The Labour Party failed to get into overall majority territory, which is what the local election results implied, by the way. Labour only being 9 points ahead. They really need to be 12.5 points ahead or more to win a majority. And in that kind of race, there will be enormous desperation within the Conservative Party to do a deal with Reform, to basically get Reform to go away. Now, Richard Tice and Reform candidates are saying under no circumstances will there be a deal with the Tories. But you can bet your bottom dollar that CCHQ and the Conservative Party will be throwing everything at both Richard Tice and Nigel Farage to say, look, just get your candidates to stand down and maybe we'll give you a seat in the House of Lords. Maybe we'll give you some kind of policy influence. Maybe we'll give you some kind of, maybe one or two safe seats and we'll stand down in Clacton or Boston and Skegness or whatever. I think a deal is very unlikely, but such is the desperation in Toryland. I suspect there'll be a lot of talking behind the scenes.
OK, look, Matthew, thank you very, very much, as ever. That is the pollster and academic Matthew Goodwin, who's been digging into those numbers. He's also got a Substack, so make sure that you subscribe to that and you get this infinite wisdom all for yourself. There we go. Thank you very much. Right.